Hello, BookTube. I was going to start this Stevestream as I'd like to start all live streams with some sort of rundown of the day's news events, of the news events of the last couple of days. But all the major news events, at least in the United States, that don't involve a major strike that is going to have, unless it's resolved, which it should be resolved quickly. It's going to have all sorts of effects on your shopping experiences in about a week. Once supermarkets and specialty stores have worked through their stock. Uh, Aside from that, all the U.S. news is Trump related, and I figure you get enough about Trump uh, anyway without coming here to get it. The bullet points of Trump news are that one of his flying monkeys, one of his cult members, was sentenced to 9 years in prison by a judge in a grandstanding. The judge is being grandstanding, but the clip from the courtroom is going viral, despite the fact that the courtroom's own live feed was taken down because she just decided, no, I'm serving my Lord and Savior. I don't care what the voters said. I'm in a position in a registry position to just stop this from happening. So I will just stop it from happening. Same thing as that guy in Wisconsin who just put a voting ballot drop box on a lorry and wheeled it away. I sincerely hope if the rule of law continues in this country, he will go to jail. That's a federal crime. And I was expecting Tina Peters to get a slap on the wrist, and instead she's going to die in prison, which was a little bit of a surprise. Also, the other bullet point of Trump information is that he is now routinely saying at his Klan rallies that Kamala Harris is guilty of murder. Just calling your opponent a murderer without any evidence at all, without even the facade of that on top of the fact that after that vice presidential press event or whatever it wasn't a debate, but there in that vice presidential thing, you saw what we all talked about for 6 years, 2 or 3 years ago, which was what happens if so-called Trumpism comes along in a smoother package. Someone who's much better at lying and talking and isn't as preposterous or as buffoonish or trailing so many felonies. And we saw that at that vice presidential debate. That's J.D. Vance. We saw just pure smarmy evil up on that stage, including a blatant. Tim Walz asked him, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election or did he not? And he avoided the question. It took him no more than a day, no more than 24 hours to answer the question, saying, yeah, he won. When he didn't think the cameras were watching him. But that's another Trump nugget. And then, of course, the biggest Trump nugget of them all, the one that drowns out all the others, is that in response to the Trump court giving Donald Trump unlimited authority, making him unaccountable by law if he's president, no sense saying that Trump court ruling was for anybody else. No other person is a felon. No other person would want that power. And no other person will have them killed in their driveways if they don't get that power. That ruling was just for one man. And because they made that ruling saying that presidents, but really Trump, no other president is going to use it, saying that presidents not only can't be prosecuted for any crimes that they commit while they're in office, but they can't even be investigated for them. You can't gather evidence. It's actually a crime to gather evidence against them. Because of that, Special Prosecutor Jack Smith had to amend his own case against Donald Trump to cut out the stuff that it could under any way be interpreted as something that he did for or by or in order to be president, and just concentrate on all the rest of it. And he submitted a huge briefing, 180 pages, to the judge in the case. And she ruled that it could be entered into evidence and therefore is public. And well, a lot of it's redacted, but the stuff that isn't redacted is utterly, appallingly damning. It destroys completely any defense that Donald Trump has ever floated for any of his crimes in orchestrating and inciting an armed insurrection to overthrow the government and install himself as a dictator and execute his sitting vice president. All of his excuses for that it was done by my minions, that I never intended it, that I thought I honestly should do it because I honestly thought that I won the election. This briefing that Jack Smith filed torpedoes all of that. This was just a third world styled coup attempt that just happened to fail. That's all. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. And so the question goes right back to how stark it was at the end of the January 6th hearings, because none of this means anything if Judge Chutkan and Jack Smith are going to be executed in Times Square in the spring of 2025. If they're going to be executed on television in the spring of 2025, then it doesn't matter what they rule or what they do or what they find or what they file. None of it matters. It doesn't matter also that Tina Peters was sentenced to jail. She will be not only freed and exonerated, but pardoned and maybe given a parade. So there are these Trump nuggets of stories, but they all hinge on the mother of all questions. And I don't think it's much of a question. So, but like I said, apart from the port strike and maybe the unthinkable happening, maybe another major storm forming for Florida in the Gulf of Mexico, all of the models are saying that a pressure trough is going to move to in a certain way that will prevent the storm from forming or from getting strong. That is still bad news. The models are starting to firm up for a mega rainmaker of an event on the Florida coast, even if it doesn't become a storm. But I don't think the models are at all clear that there's no chance of it becoming a hurricane, which would be incredible. But aside from the port closure and that, it's all Trump news. So I don't have any initial throat clearing for you. Instead, I thought for this Stevestream, since I don't know how many more Stevestreams there are on the horizon in the next while, I thought we would concentrate on your problems. Let's fix your issues, shall we? Let's fix your issues. Tell Father Steve what your issues are, and we'll see if we can fix them. I was thinking about this today. We got out of bed, me and the bean. We got out of bed first thing in the morning and walked around. I don't know why we do it. She doesn't need anything in the way of potty breaks. Her bladder is like this big. She can go forever without needing to go, without even thinking about it. But we went out, walked around, stretched the legs, take some deep breaths. Gives me a chance to start the day off, even though I know she's going to fall right back to sleep. And we did that. You get all the windows uncleared, the curtains opened, all that sort of stuff. Get everything prepared for the heat of the day on October 3rd. And I was reading all morning long, and I was thinking, I don't have much in the way of issues. But that's not true for the rest of you. You all have issues, and we can fix them. Now, I know already, without even knowing what they are, what the underground answer to most of them is. And it's self-control, which none of you want to hear. None of you want to hear that horrible term. None of you want to hear that. It's what Chaucer referred to when he was writing about a lack of constancy. And he said, the world and everything in it is lost for a lack of constancy. And that is true. That is self-control. That is self-possession, as he would have called it. And that's at the heart of what I would imagine most of your issues are. But some of you probably have real issues. Although even the real issues, what would we say? You have a bad job you don't like? Wouldn't that also be self-control? Wouldn't that also boil down to self-control? If you put aside 1/10 of your income every week, you hate your job and you know there's no chance that it's going to change into a job you like, so you put aside 1/10 of your income every week until you have a cushion so that you can quit and look for a new job. I guess illness would not be a lack of self-control. but anyway, let's do you want to come over here, baby? Why are you fiddling? Why are you come here? Come on over here. She's trying to decide what to do. You blend in very well with the polka dots, baby girl. Are you going to make a bed for yourself? What are you going to do? Come on over here. Come on. No? Well, I'm not coming over there. Do you want to come over here? Huh? Here, let me get a little bed made for you. Come on, you can do it. There you go. There you go, baby. That's what she really wanted, just to be. She does this neat little comma-shaped curl next to me, and then he's perfectly content. But anyway, let's move over to the chat, and we'll see what your issues are and how we can solve them. Since you're all screwed up, we'll see if we can straighten you out. L-Tel is first. Hey, Steve, I recently started the Farseer trilogy and I'm enjoying it, but I find Fitz to be quite dull. Do you like the series? No, not particularly. I think the whole thing is dull. What are some fantasy novels you enjoy apart from the works of Tolkien? Well, the usuals: Farfan and Grey Mouser, Elric of Melniboné, whole bunch of other later stuff. Jenny Parks, I feel like an adulterer watching two streams at once. What other stream are you watching? I don't like the sound of that at all. ENT, hi, Steve. If it's not too personal, tell us more about your friendship with Lauren Bacall. What was she like beyond the Hollywood glamour? What kind of reader was she? Love your channel. She was a very adventurous reader, a very passionate reader when she could get the chance, which wasn't often in a busy life. And delightfully acerbic, delightfully wonderful to correspond with in old style snail mail. Kevin Toll reads, nice you are back, Steve. Hope you've been doing productive things and enjoying life. I have been doing productive things, but the productive things have been contributing to me not enjoying life, since they all involve serial killers. But and there's this, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, there's this huge thing that I'm doing, this huge for-pay project that I'm doing. And it involves a lot of research, a lot of writing and rewriting, a lot of drafting and bullet points and whatnot. And it's handleable, but it's a big thing that I have to work into the steady stream of other stuff. And that is causing problems. I should have written a Steve Reads entry long before now. Open letters, I'm behind on open letters, on reviews of new books, which is why I'm here at all. So I need to work all of that in. But you didn't leave your "hope you're doing well" comment to hear me complain. So, Aaron the Book Baron, hi Steve, will you do a review of a book about St. Augustine and slavery? I doubt it. Golem Muad'Dib, hi Steve, how are you doing? Hope you and the dog are doing well. Hope we're doing well. Yeah, the bean is now. Oh, she's going to stop now. She was licking my fingers. She likes to. She's licking my fingers. That's all. But we are doing very well. Peyton, how will historians answer the question, why did we self-navigate the destruction of America? Were they just not paying attention? Did they just sleep through it all? I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know how historians, of course, there won't be American historians, but non-American historians, I don't know how they will answer this question. They are still grappling with the answers to those questions for 1930s Germany, an exact parallel except for proper names. I don't know how they will answer the question, especially since the loudest voices lamenting the choices that are being now are the people who are cheering it on the most right now. MAGA in this country are so enamored of sticking it to people, of owning people. They're so enamored of that. They love the dopamine rush of that so much. Boy, I really can make you mad, can't I? That they are literally selling their freedom to do it. And they're going to regret that. they're going to regret that. The minute they realize they're not free, they're going to say, oh, wait, no, I just wanted to annoy people. I'm just kidding. And it'll be too late. It will be too late. And that definitely applies to the foremost MAGA acolytes. Marjorie Taylor Greene being told that she can't have a job, can't work in Congress, can't wear clothes. She's going to like that? No. Is she going to object to it? If objecting to it gets a rifle butt across the face? No, she's not. But she is going to regret it. She's going to regret that she did that. Anyway, maybe dreaming. Here's a question, good sir. I'm 34 and have written 10 full-length novels over the span of 10 years now, and I'm deathly afraid of putting it out in the world. Also, my revision skills are trash. Well, I'm assuming that, okay, first of all, it's not a question, but I'm assuming that if you did that much, you are getting already the most important thing out of it. I've done about that. And for me, the most important thing is the sheer joy of doing it. You must feel that, or you wouldn't keep doing it. It's an incredible joy to do. But 10, you're starting to get to the point where, I know I'm no one to talk on this point, but you're starting to get to the point where you should probably start thinking about showing it to other people. And your revision skills, you don't have to worry about your revision skills. Hire somebody for a cut rate. Hire somebody to just read and pick out stuff. There are plenty of people out there on Fiverr or elsewhere, or for free on various work boards, who will do that, even for the practice. Gandhi Angle says, do you watch Lex Friedman? He recently had archaeologist Ed Barnhart on, who discussed the lost civilizations of South America. I watch Lex Friedman as much as I can. It's pretty trying to do. I had very little patience in college when circumstances would force me to talk with stoners, and I have very little patience with them now. It's like listening to your favorite songs at 1/4 speed. You're sort of mentally reconstituting them and maybe gleaning some enjoyment that way. But Michael H says, hi from Portland, Oregon. Yes, I think I know where Portland is. Thank you for all your videos. Wasn't that nice? Off-leash dogs stress out me and my Yorkie poo. As well they should. There are many at Nature Park where we visit, despite numerous signs prohibiting this. What do I do? I know the feeling. I have encountered this many times when I've been out in places where, again, like you say, there are signs everywhere. I went with dogs, not so much with Frida, but in the past, I've encountered dogs where, if I were anyone but myself, tragedy would have resulted. Death would have resulted for someone. Some dog would have died. Death, with the owner nowhere around. Actually, I shouldn't say not with Frida, because a couple of times while I've been walking Frida in places like that, we have encountered that same thing. In fact, just last year, we were on a back trail in the woods, and a dog rounded the corner. Big dog rounded the corner. He had a collar on, but no leash, no owner anywhere around. He froze. He started to give challenge to Frida. Frida does not accept challenge from other dogs. She doesn't give it to them because she doesn't even cross her mind. But she doesn't accept it from them at all. She's completely dominant. And this dog started to stiff walk towards her. And had I not been able to intervene, had I not been able to shift out of English and tell that dog to sit the F down, tragedy would have resulted. There would have been an attack. A little dog like Frida would have died. And the owner rounded the corner a minute later. Once the standoff was over, once the dog was sitting there just looking at me, the owner rounded the corner, walked past the dog. As he was passing, very casually clipped on the leash and just kept walking. And he was about 10. He passed us without a look in our direction, no more than 3 feet away on the trail. And then when he was about 5 feet away, I said, no apology. Only I used an adjective, or maybe more than one adjective, before apology. And he looked startled. An encounter happened from there that we need not get into, but it happens all the time. And I don't know what to tell you what to do. I have every time that sort of thing happens to me, I think, what would this be like if I weren't me? What would this be like if I didn't have a means to control the other dogs that isn't a leash? No one else has that. So what would I do if this weren't me? I guess you have a choice. It's maddening to think that you have to deprive your dog of that space because other people are being irresponsible. That's maddening to think. But I don't know what else to tell you. Have sharp words with the owners. Fortunately, your Yorkie poo you can probably lift over your head. It's important to remember that. It's important to remember if there's aggression in the air, it's important to remember to get your dog up over your head like a basketball. way as high as you can lift them, instead of what people tend to instinctively do, which is to pull them around to one side and then around to the other side. Get it away from the ground. But that's horrible advice to give. I know what you mean. I feel for it completely. When I was much younger, my response was much, much harsher than it is now. Much harsher. If 30, 40 years ago, if I had encountered that same owner on that trail in the woods and he had just complete nuclear a-hole walked past us, casual as could be, I'd have waited until he was 5 feet away and I would have told his dog to take his calf off. And then see how casual you are then when you have to crawl out of this park, leaving a huge trail of blood behind you because your dog attacked you. I didn't have anything to do with it. I don't know your dog. 40 years ago, I would have done that. Now I just give a sharp rebuke. But those options aren't open to you. So I guess you just have to decide. If there's actual danger, of course, that makes your decision for you. You have to just leave that area and just not use it. It's a shame, though. Oh, the chat jumped. I know I'm not alone in this because William Gallagher did a live stream on 58 Keys, and he had the chat jump on him. So it does happen. It doesn't happen to Vosh, but it does happen to us lesser beings. But Daniel is next. My problem is that I'm in the middle of a divorce, and I'm pretty much being disowned by my family. Not much because of the divorce, but because I'm now with a man. So everything is a mess for now. That's terrible to hear. My heart goes out to you, but it's not a whole mess. Right? Right? At the heart of it is something wonderful. I'm assuming that you being with a man is an expression of far greater honesty about yourself than your marriage was, even at its best moments. And that, having the courage to seize that honesty, is not a mess. It might cause messes, but you only get this one life. That sounds like, it sounds horrible. All my sympathy in the world, but it sounds like the motivating reason why it's all horrible is actually wonderful. So I would urge you to hang on, because that decision usually works out. It's better than lying. Anyway, Sid says, "Are you getting any surprising feedback on your life tips video?" Not surprising, no, but very nice. Lots and lots of emails about that video. Lots of them. Lots of people saying, I didn't know what you were doing because of the title. Lots of strangers too. Lots of people who are new to the channel. I found in the last week, we have developed a kind of humor on this channel. It's definitely my kind of humor. As you ask anybody that knows me in person, it's my kind of humor. I have a blast. I have a lot of fun. I like to have fun, just minute by minute, day by day in life. And a lot of new people that I'm getting don't get that. A few people have asked, where were the testosterone related tips? It's coming as a little bit needing a little bit of adaptation on the part of some people watching my channel to understand how much of YouTube itself I am satirizing. Peyton says, I agree with that point, whether I like it or not. In a book I read, it says you achieve very little in life because you lack self-control. Self-control is usually at the heart of it. Well, Daniel just mentioned something that isn't ultimately the result of a lack of self-control. And there are circumstances like that. Of course, the story about, I can't walk my little dog in the park because there's so many irresponsible owners. That also is not a problem of self-control, but plenty of problems are. Plenty of them are. Gola Muad'Dib says, I enjoyed the life tip video. I made a bug out bag. Thanks. Oh, really? Your first one? How interesting. Gandhi says, I am now navigating my relationship with my English bulldog. I'm relying on his cooperation that I have my morning cup of coffee before we attend to his business. Okay, but why? Why wouldn't you invert those? Why wouldn't you attend to his business first? How'd you feel first thing in the morning if you hadn't been able to do anything for 12 hours? You don't need coffee in order to walk around, right? I mean, you don't. Why isn't that reversed? Jenny Park says, sorry, Steve, Gareth, and Dave are streaming too. Well, but you know where your priorities lie. or you are canceled. Tolstoy 111, ever see that photo of Marilyn Monroe reading Ulysses? Yes, I did. I have seen it many. It's an iconic photo, of course. I'm amazed that she got the book right side up. Siva says, I get the sense that Harris will have a comfortable win, but Trump will surely announce himself the winner nonetheless. I also think he's going to get creative and do something unexpected. Thoughts? Well, we already know what the expected, what the things he'll do are not unexpected. They're already known. He's already announced them. He's already admitted. He's already announced several times that unless he wins, it's a fraudulent election. Exactly what he said in his first debate with Hillary Clinton. He said, I'll respect the peaceful, tranquil transfer of power if I win. Implicitly saying not otherwise. And he's already said that dozens of times at his various Klan rallies, that he's not going to accept losing, that it's a rigged election if he loses. But it's not a question. It's not only a question of him winning and losing. It's a question of certifying votes. It's a question of certifying delegates. If states don't get certified delegates and send them in, then Congress and the vice president cannot certify an election. They need those pieces of paper. If those pieces of paper aren't there, they can't do it. I have a feeling that I know basically what's going to happen with this election, unless something like January 6th happens that I didn't see coming. I have a feeling I know what's going to happen. I think that that at the end of the year, the country is going to have two people calling themselves president, and maybe the loser will be given the job by the Supreme Court for the second time in my lifetime, because the Supreme Court is Trump. It's Trump. It's the Trump court. But we will see. We will see. It's the whole thing is mind-boggling to me. It should never have happened. Trump should never have been allowed to run for president. This all would be avoided if that had not happened. A violent insurrectionist who incited and orchestrated an armed insurrection to overthrow the government, smear crap on the walls of the Capitol, execute his vice president, and install himself in power illegally for the rest of his life. Why did this country allow him to run for president? Why? I do not know. I do not know. Hassan, hi Steve. Do you think there are any attitudes to reading taught in schools that are wrong? Almost all of them. Almost all the attitudes taught about reading in schools are wrong. That it's a duty, that it's a chore, that you can be graded on it, that you have to do a certain amount at a certain time. Worst of all, especially when you get into late high school and then all through college, that there's only one right way to interpret this and you must parrot it back to me, basically in the same way, or you don't get credit on your exam and then you fail this class and that brings down your grade point. Almost all of it is taught wrong. It's joyful. It's a joyful activity, as I don't need to tell any of you, but it's not taught that way in schools. T says, okay, then who do you respect? I mean, you can speed up Lex if he talks too slow. No, you can't talk. You can't speed up Lex Friedman. He is a stoner at any speed. Even if you speed him up, it just sounds like he's taking a different drug. Not that he's taking no drugs. It's not that he's talking slowly. It's not that he's talking slowly. It's that he's talking like someone who's having a dissociative episode. Only does it all the time. Does it in every episode of his show. All for bog standard platitudes and a whole bunch of navel gazing. And what do I care if he has some historian on when in other episodes he's proven that he's willing to believe anything? What does it matter if he has an expert on his show? What does it matter that it's an expert versus somebody that he picks off the street on the same subject of South American archaeology or whatever? What does it matter if he picks an expert as opposed to somebody off the street if he has shown that he's willing to believe anything? No. I think he's just yet another example, another one of these IDW dark web grifters who have weaponized and monetized the aimlessness of young men between the ages of 18 and 25. They go for that market. That's where the money is. They want to be the voice of reason or rebellion or maybe both to that demographic. And that demographic is close to my heart. In my life, I always gravitate to that demographic. Those are where my friends are. I cannot, I would say I can't stand, but men who are older, men who are in their, well, the slope show, the defeatism of men in their late 30s is off-putting anyway, including, I might add, in case any are listening, to women. But the way that men in their late 40s and early 50s, mid 50s, God help us, 60s, tend to codify into just pillars of salt. They don't mentally, they don't bend, they don't flex, they're not interested, they don't scintillate, they don't laugh at themselves or anything else. They don't learn. They're long since done with learning. They're not even interested in the process of learning. Those age groups have no interest at all. People like that are not interesting to be friends with. So the demographic of 18 to 25 means a lot to me. And when I see somebody like Lex Friedman or Chris Williamson or Joe Rogan, especially the king of them all, I don't want to grab those grifters because they're just in it for the money. I want to grab that demographic and say, you should respect yourself more. You deserve better than this. If you heard this kid on your dormitory floor, you'd walk right by him. You deserve better than this. It's what I want to say. But anyway, Tolstoy 111, do you like Gustav Hasford's The Short Timers? For those who don't know, it's the source of Full Metal Jacket. Well, and you're expecting that those don't know, right? That's what I always talk about. That's a party stopper. And it's meant to be that. It's meant to have everyone who's engaged in the social activity of give and take conversation all stop at the same time and look at you so you can instruct them. It's a fundamentally antisocial tick. And if you have it, and you do, you should get rid of it. It's a fundamentally antisocial tick to want to have a grab bag, a little Graham Animal Crackers box of conversation stoppers. So it's a thing that you should train yourself not to do. You should train yourself not to do it. Anyway, Levi, hi Steve, have you ever listened to or watched Decoding the Gurus? I have. Yeah. I have to say, listening to them is a lot easier than watching them because the one of them is such an enormous tobacco addict. I'm wincing when I'm watching. Just wincing when I watch what he's doing to himself. The one with the long stringy gray hair. But fortunately, it's just them talking. So I don't listen to podcasts, but if I happen to hit a YouTube video of theirs, I don't have to be watching the screen to get their content. And I really like their content, except that I understand the temptation. Almost certainly I would end up doing it myself, but they too often end up just snickering as though the intellectual, scientific, or historical grounds of why they're snickering is common knowledge, when a lot of times it isn't. They don't always do that. They're very good at disseminating abstruse scientific information quickly and clearly. But they do it too often for my taste. But still, I'll take it, definitely. There aren't many channels like them that are as good at what they do as they are. Michael H. said, are you still planning to make additional promised installments of your starter kits for gays? If so, will Jean Genet make the cut? Genet will not make the cut. No, but I didn't know that I was going to make more starter kits for the gays. I certainly could. Oh, wait, the chat jumped again. Here, let's go back. Let's go back to make the cut. It was Jean Genet. Oh, there we go. Peyton is back. When I think of the great people of America and other countries, I think of a handful of wonderful people who have done what they could in their time to offset darkness. Maybe a political miracle will happen. Well, I don't believe in miracles, but there is I don't know about a miracle, but there is a discrete thing that could happen that would fix all of this. It's not part of the common talking head political commentary. The talking head political commentary line for 8 years now has been that Trump is just a symptom of something deeper and not actually the disease. That's not true. He is the disease. If he were gone, the disease, the fever, would break overnight. So, so, but absent that, no, no. Daniel Pablo says, "Hey Steve, do you have any plans for Victober? I'm reading The Woman in White and The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, both for the first time. Oh, good for you. Those prompts for Victober were my favorites. The ones commemorating uh, our two lost booktubers who were so enthusiastic vocal proponents of Victober. Those are two of my favorite prompts. I did have a plan for Victober, which was to read a novel. I was going to read out loud a Trollope novel, but my October may be fragmented. It may be fractured in a couple of different ways. So I didn't want to. I didn't want to embark on that and then fail at it, or needed to wait until November. Uh, Peyton says, should I read Doris Cannon's book on convoluted universe? Her books on Nostradamus, etc. I've been seeing lots of her old videos popping up lately. No, you should not. Andrew says, have you seen Springsteen's little clip endorsing Harris? No surprise there, but I thought it was well expressed. Notice that between the end of the block and the fire hydrant, there was no emergency. So the emergency vehicle did not get to an emergency and then stop. They ran their siren for 35 seconds just to go through a red light because it was annoying them. Is that against the law in Massachusetts? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But anyway, yeah, I did see the Springsteen clip. I honestly don't think, I know that voting analysts and talking heads are dining out on the fact that this isn't true, but I honestly don't think there are any undecided voters left in the country. So I don't understand what endorsements are doing one way or another. I honestly don't see. Trump doesn't have hardcore followers. He has cult members. No, not one of them is going to look at that and see it and say, well, I've always liked Springsteen's music, so I'll change my mind. They're not going to do it. They're not living in the same reality as the rest of us. That picture of J.D. Vance, totally vetted by his campaign, totally vetted by the Trump campaign, loved. That weird picture of him with the 30 pounds lighter with a jawbone and bright blue eyes like an action hero. When MAGA sees him on TV, they're seeing that portrait because that portrait being promulgated on MAGA media has told them that that's what they should see. They're literally changing what they see in the visual receptors of their head, so that when they see J.D. Vance at an event, they're seeing that version of him. When you're that far gone, I don't think a clip by Springsteen is going to make a difference. Bookends and Books is here. Hi, Steve, and everyone watching. Thank you for your enthusiastic participation in Framed. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Daniel's Bibliophagy, thank you for the kind words, Steve. I've decided to live in complete honesty, which is adding to the familial friction. Now it is. Now it is. Think of it always as you're dropping something into an active solution. The solution's first reaction is going to be autoimmune. And that's an unthinking reaction. So now there's friction because this living organism of your living set of connections has received a shock, two of them, and it's spasming. But that won't, with any luck, that won't stay true. And you confirm my point, which is that at the heart of all of this friction, at the heart of all of this mess, is a bright, courageous idea, a courageous decision on your part, and that can't ever go wrong. Monet Doyle says hello. Gandhi says I walk him late at night. He is not going 12 hours. Oh, your dog. Doesn't matter. Don't care if you walk him at 3 a.m. His needs come before yours. You can wait for your coffee. Tolstoy 111 says, I keep hearing that Marilyn Monroe had a massive intellect. I wish there was at least one interview that even hinted at that. I know people love to say that. All the biographies say it, but they only say it. They don't ever demonstrate it. But so we're agreeing on something. Good Lord. Larry says, did you see the picture of Trump and the dock worker union leader? Strange they go on strike shortly after that, isn't it? There's a lot of strange stuff going on there. That's one thing that we know for sure. I no longer care what Trump cult says about Trump derangement syndrome. I think it's now completely acceptable to assume that Trump is always breaking the law and always lying about it. Of course, colluding with a union leader for a deal in order to swing the election would be breaking the law. I think it's safe to assume now that he is always breaking the law and always lying about it. So if he sets up a hurricane relief fund, you know that he's keeping all of the money. And that's fraud. That is illegal. It doesn't matter. This orange couch says, "Hi, Steve. What is your favorite soup?" Chicken noodle soup is my favorite soup. Creepy pasta goblin, wasn't Marilyn Monroe marrying Arthur Miller stranger than her reading Ulysses? Not from his point of view. Waiting at the station with a good book. I just finished Nick Lloyd's Eastern Front, and it was rather good. Did you enjoy him as much as Norman Stone? No, I don't enjoy him as much as Norman Stone. There's almost nobody I enjoy as much as Norman Stone. Think of what you're getting. And Nick Lloyd's book is really good, but think of what you're getting with Norman Stone. There's some sort of black stone polished apothem in every paragraph. It's just a guy who does not need to impress academia, who does not need to impress anybody. It just reads so free to me, there's no comparison. The Atlantic and his enemies. Anyway, Sid, I found a Reddit thread where high school and college teachers were sharing horror stories about the state of illiteracy in their classes these days. Really puts a lot of current events in perspective. Yes, KT Books just did a video about massive illiteracy rates in his native Wales, and the same is true here in America. And I've read other reports along the same lines for the last 2 or 3 months. These reports are starting to swarm, and people are starting to point out the fact that thanks to all sorts of tech devices, tech innovations, text to speech, for instance, people who are illiterate can skate by a lot easier than they ever could before. Because they can almost every device that you have now has an option for text to speech for almost anything. So it's not a question of you having to buy an audiobook. It's that you can just ask your machine to say what it is that you would otherwise be reading, which gets marginally illiterate people through their life, through their day-to-day life. But it's an absolute death knell to literature or things like literature. It's an absolute death knell to stuff like that. I mean, that if that's true for illiterates who are 31 or 41 or something like that, then it's got to be true for 7 or 8 out of 10 children. Anyway, Peyton is back. I feel like Bernie was president. This wouldn't be happening, right? No, you're dead wrong about that. I don't know what this is, but it doesn't really matter. No, Bernie being president is no more of an El Dorado, no more of a golden dream than Corbyn being prime minister. They struck a chord with that demographic, 18 to 28 to 25-year-old men. But the idea that their victories at the time when it looked like they might both have victories would have led to a golden age is dangerously wrong. Andy Gaia says, Steve, about that document filed by Jack Smith, were you as nonplussed as I was about how brazen Trump was? I wasn't. No, I have said this from the beginning. I said it from January 6th when I had a big Twitter account. It got nuked. It got botted and nuked. So I don't have it anymore. And I don't miss it. Not since the site was sold to an apartheid Nazi. But on January 6th, I was rapping people's knuckles, people saying, well, there's some unrest, but let's concentrate on the glory of what's happening in the chamber. I say, what are you talking about? Are you insane? Are you literally out of your mind? There's a mob attacking the Capitol. You want us to concentrate on something else? No, his brazenness has not surprised me. He knows what he wants. He doesn't know much, but he knows that. Connor George says, hi, Steve. I stumbled upon your channel a couple of weeks ago and am addicted. Oh, my goodness gracious. Well, I don't know how to take that. Starting to think I can hear your voice in my sleep. There are some people who have been watching my channel for a long time who have reported that. That cannot be healthy. Anyway, what do you think of Tom Holland? I'm reading Dominion today. I didn't like the idea of an English person playing Spider-Man, the quintessential American hero. But aside from the pandering of his aw shucks American fake accent, I think he's done a fairly good job. I think he made a mistake, a weird, impenetrable mistake, announcing and then saying that he didn't want to play Spider-Man anymore. I don't get that at all. Winston Vidal says, did you enjoy fellow booktuber Brian Bruce's book, MacArthur's? Whoop, the chat jumped. Let's go back to where we were. It was Winston Vidal. Where are you? Brian Bruce's book, MacArthur's Bloody Butchers. I did not read it. Hassan says, favorite collections/anthologies of book reviews, preferably stuff still in print. I don't know if it's favorite. I mean, my favorites would all be individual critics, but there is a big book. It's not in print anymore, I'm sure. It's called Books of the Century. It's very generous. It's very wonderful. I mean, it's illustrated and it's got all sorts of sidebar material, and it takes you through 100 years of New York Times book reviews, from when they were just little notices to when they were longer things but still unsigned, all the way to the showboating celebrity-driven present day. And along the way, you're reading reviews and how the styles have changed. It's fascinating. I'm sure that it's fascinating to other people, not just me. I'm positive of that. Let's see here. Lindsay reads, hi, Steve. I'm dealing with the dilemma of the insane cost of living on the West Coast. I'm considering moving to more affordable Midwest. I love it here in Portland, but staying feels untenable. Yeah. The coasts, both coasts, are incredibly, untenably, that's a good word, are untenably expensive. The West Coast and most of the East Coast are untenably expensive. The Midwest is not, but it's MAGA. It's MAGA and flat earth fundamentalism. And not just around the fringes. Right now, where you are, you can find that on the fringes of town. But in gigantic swaths of the middle of the country, that is the air you breathe. That's the daily routine. That's everything. That's everybody that you're going to know. And you might be standoffish for a bit, but sooner or later, you're going to. I don't think it's that tough a call. It's still wonderful, pleasant, foursquare people. But they're all authoritarian. Almost all of them are authoritarian, except for enclaves here and there, individuals here and there. But by and large, a lot of the states, the Midwest, wants a dictator. They no longer want democracy. You talk to them at their Klan rallies. One woman went viral because the interviewer that was talking to her simply could not believe what she was saying. She kept telling him, no, I don't care if I don't have a vote. No, I don't care. I keep telling you I don't care. She was saying it because she has no conception of what it means to say that and what it would mean to not have that, to not have not be a free citizen. She has no conception of that. She just saw that she was bothering him and she liked that dopamine hit. You're going to have to deal with that if you move, but it's still a clear decision because, I don't even know. A 3-bedroom apartment in most of Portland or Seattle or Boston or Philadelphia will be easily $4,500 a month. Easily that. And a 3-bedroom, $4,500 a month in the large parts of the Midwest would be a whole house. You could rent a whole house or work on a mortgage for one. And there's no one in the Midwest who would consider charging that, unless maybe in Chicago or something. There's no one who would consider charging even a quarter of that for just that length, just to get through the red light. That's all. And that makes a huge difference because wages are not going up. And Congress is totally ineffective at stopping price gouging and stock buybacks. So stuff is just going to keep getting more expensive. So Portland is probably untenable. Paul Roslindale, Boston is pretty expensive too. Yes, he's true about that. He's right. Monet Doyle, I wish I had some book tabs tonight. I'm reading a book that I really want to put tabs in. Well, I wouldn't know because I use the Star Trek data pad. so I've got all the bookmarks that I could possibly want. I don't. Let's see here. Bookends and books. I have a reader's dilemma question. I recently bought 3 early 20th century door stoppers, The Forsyte Saga, Parade's End, Quiet Flows the Dawn. Which one should I read first? It depends on the translation of Quiet Flows the Dawn. The earliest translations of Quiet Flows the Dawn are they make gripping reading, but they are not good. They're not good. I forget who does the translation. There's an enormous doorstop of a hardcover. Rather disturbingly has a painting on the cover of a naked boy riding a horse, which is disturbing in two different ways. But I forget the translator's name. I could look it up, but that is the translation to have of that book. And if you have that translation, I'm afraid no shade intended to the other two. There's no comparison between the three. It's a Russian epic. It's a genuine Foursquare, Life and Fate, War and Peace Russian epic. It's head and shoulders better than the other two. If you have a good translation, if you have a really good translation. Otherwise, go with Parade's End. Larry says, "Hi, Steve. I'm reading a presidential biography for every president in order, and I'm on John Quincy Adams. Should I read American Visionary or Militant Spirit?" Well, one of those two has a very good blurb in the paperback. Both of them have been reviewed by yours truly. They are both really, really good. So you can't go wrong with either one of them. Although your project is to read a biography of every president in order. Okay, fine. But if you put a little money aside, you could buy the Library of America 2-volume set of John Quincy Adams' diary, which is amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's a beautiful box set, but it's also an amazing document. One of the most amazing documents any American president has ever written. And then you're not dealing with a biographer. Then you're dealing with the man himself. Leo Percara, does it have to be English writers for Victober or just any writer of the same era? The organizers of Victober say English or Irish. Not American, not Russian. So just English or Irish. Dorlin Starn, I'm reading the Hans Fallada Every Man Dies Alone. Look at that. You and me both. You got it right here. On your recent recommendation, it's a real page turner that sadly at this time in the US churns my stomach. Yes, I'm really enjoying it. I think this is really, really good. Anti-Gaia says J.D. Vance was terrifying in his Mask of Sanity. Reminds one of Patrick Bateman. He is genuinely terrifying. And he does not mean anything that he says when he's trying to peel off middle of the road, don't like Trump Republicans. He is lying about that. He is lying about that. Hannah's Books is here. How about a dog coffee compromise? Get a coffee with your timer, wake up and pour it out in the thermos on your way out with the pup. Well, you already know where I stand. Dogs first. All your needs second. Dogs needs first. Hazy Hill says, "Hey, Steve, I'm trying to find good writers known for short works. I only know of Tanazaki's novellas and Muriel Spark off the top of my head and want to see if you or the chat had any recommendations." The chat doesn't have any recommendations. Okay, it's just me. But Eudora Welty, since Hannah was just here, and Guy de Maupassant haven't been a really good translation. We should have a 1,000-page Pen Classic Deluxe in a great new translation of his short stories, and we don't. We should, and we don't. Chekhov, and also from America, George Saunders. Those are all, you won't go wrong with any of them. Peyton says King Trump will make President Trump look shy and demure. Right. Yes. Faisal says, I really enjoyed reading on Kindle, but I can't bring myself to spend money on Kindle books. If I buy the physical version, it will most probably end up staying on my bookshelf. Please advise what to do. Well, there are plenty of books that you can get for free online, places like Project Gutenberg, that don't have DRM. They can't be removed from your device. You could try that. If you don't want to spend money on Kindle books because you don't trust Kindle, you could try a different e-reader. Waiting at the state. Oh, wait, no, the chat jumped again. Waiting at the Station. I always wish Norman Stone would have written more on the intelligence failures of the Russians in the Battle of the Masurian Lakes. He is great. Yeah, I always wish that too. I say it all the time at parties. Brian Constantine. Hi, Steve. Know you're a fan of Jung. You're no fan of Jung. I'm guessing you are skeptical of Joseph Campbell's hero journey concept. Is it just an illusion that seems to work at least some stories? Yeah, it is. In Campbell, it is. That's not the reason that I don't like Jung is because I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in telepathy. I don't believe in superpowers. But yeah, those are my problems with both of them. Anti-Gaia says Tom Holland looks like his face is caving in with his permanently pursed lips. Well, he barely has lips, right? He's got a very British face. He's barely got any lips. Leo Percara says, you don't have a Twitter anymore. Is this your journey through dopamine detox, Marcus Aurelius, reader, dude bro, influencer? No, I'd be on Twitter like crazy but my account got taken over by a bot, and then they nuked it. They used it for a little while to sell shoes, and then they nuked it. I had a backup Twitter, and I still do. I am on the site. I think I leave my account on every video. I think I do. And I post every once in a while. I go on there every once in a while. But Twitter, having a small account on Twitter really doesn't do anything. You're not reaching out to anyone. No one's reaching out to you. If you're there to publicize printed work, you can't do it because you're reaching no one. And B, the site really has changed. to put it nice and neutrally, the site really has changed for the worse. It's losing money, truckload after truckload. I can't help but think that sometime in the relatively near future, Musk will sell it. I can't help but think that, but maybe not. Maybe it's a vanity thing now for him. Everything else is. Gandhi says Midwest is expensive. Chicago is very high. Chicago, yes, but maybe not. Maybe not Altoona, right? Or Sioux Falls. I think. I mean, you'd be losing a lot, but you have the internet, so it's not like you're losing as much as you once would have. But a 2-bedroom apartment in Sioux Falls, no realtor. I don't, unless I'm wrong. No realtor there, or in Cedar Rapids, or the bedroom communities of Cedar Rapids. No realtor there is going to just look at you without blinking and say that's $4,500 a month. They're just not going to do it. You have to factor in. I mean, you have to factor in the cost of moving and also what you give up in terms of culture and connection and whatnot. Mark says, have you ever read a book? Oh, that had my heart fluttering for a minute. I thought that was going to go poorly. Have you ever read a book without knowing it was one of a trilogy, and after having finished it, enjoyed it, were delighted to find you had 2 more installments waiting for you? Not when the trilogy was already out. No. I've done that with books where the books hadn't yet been written. I had no idea that Lord Foulsbane, for instance, would become part of a trilogy. Mark says, it just happened to me twice, first with Flanagan's Year of the French, and then again with Firmer's A Time of Gifts. I'd love to know what the Venerable Steve thinks of these 2 trilogies. The Venerable Steve. I like that. I have never been able to understand the genius of Flanagan. I have never been able to do that. He is all over this book. Sorry, that's upside down and backwards. The Letters of Seamus Heaney. He's all over this book. And Heaney, and also Heaney's contemporaries, just take it for granted that he's a literary giant. And I've never seen it. Never. Maybe I will get a paperback copy of The Year of the French and try it again. Maybe I will. I don't know. But Patrick Lee Firmer, I absolutely love. All of his books are great. Steve Bronstein says, is J.D. Vance on a cynical quest for power, or did he sincerely change his views and become a reactionary? Oh, he's definitely been radicalized. But the 2 aren't mutually exclusive. He is on a cynical quest for power. The number one thing he wants more than anything in the world is the death of Donald Trump. Gandhi Angle says, do you live next to a hospital? No, that would be a virtuous reason for this. Nope. No, I don't. I live on a very, very long, completely flat, completely straight road that borders a train track. So there are no intersections for a huge stretch of time. You've got the road on one side, and sure, there are roads coming in on one side of it, but there's nothing on the other side. And it's actually an evacuation route for the city of Boston. So when you start on that evacuation route, when you get to the subway station and you've got this road in front of you, you can look ahead and see that you've just got one string of traffic lights after another. And if you've got the ability to hit a little siren and run right through them, you will. It's against the law, but you will. You could be fired for it, at least. Andy Gaia says, Steve, what is your favorite scene from The Empire Strikes Back? I don't know that I have one. Do I have one? Probably be very pedestrian, whatever it is. Tolstoy 111. I recall you saying you hated Kenneth Branagh's film of Hamlet. Was your objection that he mistook scale for insight? A Shakespearean prof I had also hated it. Actually, that's a very good way to put it. One of the problems with it is that he mistook scale for insight. Yeah. Another one was a sophomore in English level stupid mistake of thinking that the way to avoid having to choose between the different versions of Hamlet is just to include in everything. Just make a 4-hour Hamlet. When that's not what you do. That's not at all what you do. Parts that you'll include will contradict parts that are already there if you do. But also just on the level of directing. On how bad the directing was just in general. All throughout the thing. Just in general. It's this every decision that it could make, it made wrong. Every single one. The famous soliloquy where Hamlet is musing on the pathetic nature of man. The camera is pulling back and back and back as we see marching armies and the grandest possible spectacle of all. It's like the person who was filming it fundamentally did not understand what the words being said actually meant. And what about that scene with Gerard Depardieu? What was he even doing? I just no, the whole thing is just awful, just absolutely awful from beginning to end, just awful. Bookins and Books says I wrote Quiet Flows the Dawn because we're in public. It's really Le Dawn Paisible, translated in French by Antoine Vitesse. I'll go for that. Thank you. No, read it in English like a normal person. What's the matter with you? The key will be how long is it? That's the key, because the I won't say bad because they're not bad. They're involving, but the earlier translations of it are much shorter. The work is huge. If your book is huge, then you probably have a good version. Although why you'd read anything in French, I don't know. I mean, what kind of an American are you anyway? Peyton says, every time I think of Victober, I think of Jennifer Brooks. I miss her. She introduced me to BookTube and your channel. Yeah, I've been watching all of the Victober announcement videos, and it's great that Victober is back. 9 years. But boy, I miss both of them. I miss Jennifer Brooks. I miss Allison and the Big Bookshelf. I miss the Giant Bookshelf. I miss them both. I miss checking in on their videos. And of course I miss their enthusiasm for Victober. I think it's a wonderful gesture on the part of the people running Victober this year to include them in tribute. I think that's just wonderful. Andrew says, the only book on Monroe I've read is Sarah Churchwell's The Many Lives. I was amazed how little agreement on key life events there was between her biographers. I know, I found that to be true. I've read some sensitive biographies of her. I've reviewed some of them that definitely sympathized with her and did a good job on some fraction or other of her life. The besetting sin of Marilyn Monroe biographers is that they want to claim too much for her. Other than that, some of them do a good job. That reading guy, I'm here for a bean watch, and then I disappear. Well, she's right next to me. She is crammed next to me. She won't stay there much longer because I'm hot. I'm HAWT, yes, but I'm also HOT. My body runs hotter than a normal body, and dogs love that when they're feeling a little chilly. And the bean is getting a little older. It's starting to be easier for her to feel chilly, but it quickly becomes too much, except in winter when suddenly I'm a dog magnet. Street Medic says, are you on Threads? It's much better than Twitter or X or whatever Elon Musk is calling it this week. I'm not. I have thought about it, but I'm not yet. Perhaps if I have tech help in the next week, I can have an account set up. That would be nice. I'll have to add that to the list. Tim's Too Many Books. I have participated in Victober for the last 2 years and yet to do it correctly. Not sure how I'm going to fail this year, though. How can you do it incorrectly? All you have to do is read a Victorian work. For Pete's sakes, that's easy. You could find an essay by Robert Louis Stevenson. Boom, you've done it correctly. Anti-Gaia, Bean watches The Neighborhood. Nobody watches Bean. She's too cool for that. Well, it's dark now. So she doesn't watch anything. She has terrible night vision. Terrible. Worse than you people. Just terrible. Jumps at shadows. She can't see anything in the dark that isn't right in front of her nose. So I mean, for the next 6 months, we're going to have to do some walks in the dark, but it's never pleasant at all. Brian says Twitter's collapse reminds me of that scene in Citizen Kane where they say the newspaper is losing money, and Kane says he'll be bankrupt at this rate in 60 years. Yeah, but I don't see it. It's a nice movie line, but Twitter, Musk can't keep losing as much money as he's losing. He can't do it. Twitter, unlike everything else that he does, Twitter is not backed by the U.S. government. If it fails, if it's going to fail, they're not going to bail him out. So the Trump government will, but a free government will not. And I don't see how he can do it. Anyway, Gandhi says, have you seen Megalopolis? Ooh, yes, I have. Yes, I have. I have seen Megalopolis. It is actually vying for control of my mind with Nosferatu. They are both vying for control of my mind. That reading guy, speaking of the internet, are there any good books about it as a thing, or maybe on specific websites or internet companies? There have been some on a handful, probably a dozen in the last 10 years on various aspects of it, but I am waiting for the big definitive book. I imagine it as being 1,000 pages long, called The Web. Just that. Just call it that. That is not splintered. It is not just going from one garage to another. It is not going from one iconic, megalomaniac to another. It's just giving you the whole of it, the whole narrative story. And that I don't think I have seen. Scott Danielson, would you recommend a book, nonfiction or fiction, that is accurate portrayal of how the House and Senate actually work? Well, I could recommend books that did that in the past, not that do that now. There are no books written on how the House especially works now. The House doesn't work now. They just wait for what Trump says. They just wait for what he says, so they can react to it, applaud it, second it, enact it if they can. And that cuts down on what the Senate can do. But no, I don't know of any contemporary book. No. No, every book that I know on the subject is before autocracy, before a bald, syphilitic Queen's rapist suddenly took over the American political landscape, just took it over. So it's about him. All of it is about him. So that a local registration official can get 9 years in prison because of him. Just him. So there's no book that I know of. Street Medic, Lord Fowles Bane is the best book in the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. There we go. I knew that sooner or later you would get back to saying manifestly wrong things. It went down in quality fast, in my opinion. Your opinion is completely wrong. It is completely wrong. The Ill Earth War and The Power That Preserves are both much, much better than Lord Fowles Bane. Tim's Too Many Books. I put The Year of the French on my TBR because I keep seeing it on booktuber shelves. I do too. I don't actually have a copy. I imagine maybe even just this chat alone will be enough so the next time I run into a copy at the Brattle, I will grab it and give it another try. It was such a slog the last time I read it, but this is actually helping. This is actually warming me up to it. Shelf improvement. I did like Brando's Henry V, though. His Henry V is brilliant, just brilliant. His Much Ado About Nothing is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I don't know what happened with Hamlet. I think he just became intimidated in the way that directors often stereotypically are about Hamlet. About Hamlet. There was a great movie. It's not known anymore. It had Joan Collins and Michael Gambon. I think it was called A Midwinter's Tale. It was about a local troupe of actors who were putting on a performance of Hamlet. And there's a wonderful scene sending up the fact that people see anything they want in Hamlet. So at one point a character says, "Oh, I see. Hamlet is Bosnia." But that's the only explanation I come up with, is that Branagh just was daunted by Hamlet. I wish that he would get back to doing Shakespeare and not be daunted. Maybe if they're all going to be like his Hamlet, then I don't want him to. Jay Rosen says, "Hey, have you ever read Middlemarch by chance? Might be the perfect for October. Think about it." I will. Jay Rosen, in all seriousness, I just got a copy of the Selected Essays of Cyril Connolly. Where do I start? Well, Cyril Connolly's not a bad place to start. He's a prince of my profession. He's great. Mark says, I'm going to adopt your Victober temporal criteria so I have an excuse to read Algernon Blackwood. Well, I wasn't putting that in there in my video to be snotty. What Mark is referring to here, for those of you who didn't watch my video today about Victober, is that I tend to think of the Victober era as the Victorian era as the longer Victorian era. So the end of the shadow of autocracy in Europe, from that point to the end of personal monarchy in Europe, if that isn't too vague. We could deal with legislative reform in Parliament, but I'm thinking when the whole world, very much including America, which no longer had to worry about strife on the high seas, when the whole Western world was able to breathe a sigh of relief because the tyrant was dead. No more last-minute returns. No more of the shadow of that. All the way to the death of the last personal monarch, the last monarch who had what we would consider power. And then the modern world rushes in. But I wasn't meaning that as disrespect to Victober itself. Tim's Too Many Books. I've seen about 30 Hamlets on stage, and I think that is often the skill in cutting the play that determines the quality of the production. Exactly. And why didn't Kenneth Branagh know that? He's as familiar with Shakespeare as anybody. Why didn't he know that? Of course, your skill in cutting Hamlet is what makes your production good. And he decided, I'm going to do a Hamlet. I'm not going to cut anything. Sorry. Street Medic. Yeah, Steve will probably have a stroke, but Kenneth Branagh's version of St. Crispin's speech is my favorite. I liked it fine. It's very good. Tolstoy 111. Branagh directed the film himself, so he made those bewildering camera blocking decisions. Your comment jumped, but we were agreeing with each other. There we go. He was trying to drum up visual interest with a fundamentally uncinematic play. I guess. Sid says, I miss those mail hauls where you showed 30 WW2 books at once. I wonder if those days will ever come back. I doubt it very much. No, I don't think they'll come back. Street Medic says the Chimes at midnight is pretty good. Gandhi says, I watched an interview with the Daily Stoic channel with Francis Ford Coppola. It was very good. The Daily Stoic channel is a little bit too far away from me to go looking. Echo Falls. I'm reading Dante for the first time right now, and I'm realizing I despise allegory, especially allegory this intricate. I just want to read something beautiful and not have to scour notes for comprehension. Unfortunately, that is what you're going to have to do with Dante. You are note dependent on him. Same thing with Milton, to a lesser extent. But same thing, read almost any Pope. It won't always be allegory, but these are very elusive poets, so you're going to need notes. It's just the way of it. If it helps any, maybe Dante's just trying your patience, in which case you'll probably drop him. But if you're determined, if it helps any, that eases the more you reread him. The more you reread him, the more you can concentrate on the sheer staggering beauty of what he's doing. J. Scott Phillips is here. Great gad. I was out having a very enjoyable late lunch with old friends when I got an alert for a Stevestream. I had to bail out and race home before the 10 past the hour. What have I missed? Not much. I was asking people what their problems were so that I could straighten them out. Tolstoy 111. I walked out of Megalopolis just feeling sad. Grandpa lost his mind. What would a Stevestream be without Tolstoy 111 being completely wrong? Where would it be without that? J. Scott Phillips. I hope I didn't miss a Blob watch or anything. Is that some sort of hint? Let's take a look and see. Of course, the Blob watch has a bit ominous to report because there are storms brewing in the Gulf of Mexico, and everyone's wondering if they're going to be a repeat of Helene. Even if they're not a repeat of Helene, even if this lead storm forms a little bit more, and it's certainly going to, it'll still be a massive rainmaker. It'll dump another 2 feet of rain on places that have already been devastated by tidal surge. But let's take a look and see. We'll give the satellites time to catch up. Remember, though, just while we're on the subject, this port strike that's going to loom larger and larger in the headlines. You're going to be reading about it tomorrow. You're certainly going to be reading about it by the weekend. It does not involve toilet paper. Okay, so let's not all start hoarding toilet paper again. All right. Yeah, okay. Well, this is not complete, and I don't know that I have a better one. What I'm talking about. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but this is not showing me what I really want to see. Uh, it's this thing. But this is not helping much to show the potential danger of that. And there's very little else. Nothing in your end of the country. A little bit of a disturbance popping in and out near New England, but there isn't going to be any rain or precipitation of any kind in New England anytime soon. Not anytime soon. It hasn't rained here in years. I don't think it's going to. Let me see if the iPad Mini, my poor little iPad Mini. This is the iPad Mini 4th generation. No, I don't even have the weather app on here because it has 16 gigs of storage. So it has 16 gigs of storage. So wait a minute. What about the phone? I can't remember if I have the weather app on the phone. No, I don't. Okay. I didn't install it on the iPad Mini. This poor little thing. It's great for reading, but it doesn't have any memory for anything else. But that weather radar thing did not really show what looks to me like it could be brewing trouble in the Gulf of Mexico. Peyton says maybe Biden should have expanded the court to 13 members, then it would be more balanced. I'm not sure if it works like that, though. Well, it didn't used to work like that, but if Biden wrote in an executive order that he considered this to be a legitimate part of governing as president, according to the Trump court, he could do it. And so he should. And so he should. According to the Trump court ruling about executive power and executive exemption from criminal liability, he could order the assassination of his chief political rival and never face a day in court for it, not even be investigatable for it. You can't even collect evidence, the crime to collect evidence, and he could certainly do that. It's just that ruling was made for one man only. It wasn't made for anyone decent who wouldn't dream of using it. It was made to enable the person who would dream of using it. But Biden could do that tomorrow. He could expand the court tomorrow. It's still too late unless he gets the expanded court to take some lower court decision overturning, for instance, lots of things. But the main, everybody has all sorts of Supreme Court, recent Trump court rulings that they hate. But the one that's by far the most important is the one that they just did, the one that says the presidents are above the law, that in the United States, the president is above the law. That is the most important one. That is a paving stone for dictatorship. And every court in every free country that has ever walked into dictatorship has had to have that legal justification first. That paving stone always comes first. I can tell you the name of it in ancient Rome. I can tell you the name of it in pre-Nazi Germany. That always comes first. Paper thin fig leaf justification in the courts. It's just depressing to see it all happen exactly according to program. Wait, Scott Jones was next. Let's go and find you. The chat has jumped again. There we go. Good to see you again. After I was away a bit, I just wanted to thank you for encouraging me to stick with Neuromancer. It did reward completion. It ends up, I like it from the beginning, but even people who struggle with it end up liking it. Kevin Compton, Branagh's entire goal in Hamlet was to film the entire play, and that play is immense. I thought there were some wonderful individual scenes in the play. Okay, your first statement is correct. All the rest of it is wrong. The play was never meant to be seen or read or experienced at that length. It was always done in versions. No one ever thought of compiling all the versions as one 4-hour extravaganza. And there are no good individual scenes. None. Maybe Charlton Heston. But even there are no good scenes anywhere in it. So, anyway, J. Scott Phillips. I've jumped into book time for Elvis's October read-along of Vanity Fair. I've never read it before. Where have I been? I can't stop laughing. It's wonderful. Absolutely. It gets there's bathos at the end, but it's largely very enjoyable. Jeff says Branagh's Henry V is why I enjoy Shakespeare today. Branagh's Henry V is really, really good. I imagine that in only a few days, several parts of it will be watched here at Hyde Cottage. Jay Rosen says, are you intrigued by the new Dearman McCullough in the TLS? I am. Yeah, I'm a little bit confused. I got a pitch for somebody to review it today. I gladly agreed, but I'm a little confused why I didn't get a finished copy. I got an e-copy, and it always feels a little odd now because the book came out a while ago here in the U.S. So, I mean, it feels odd to write to the publicist and say, "Hey, you never sent me a finished copy of that," when the publicist has moved on to newer books. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. It can't hurt. Kevin Compton says, I have an issue with everything that Branagh has directed, but I won't be tedious. Steve, what do you think of Branagh's Poirot? It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Hannah's Books. One of my friends said during the intermission of Branagh's Hamlet, I have a feeling this is not going to turn out well. We laughed thinking she meant Hamlet, but no, she meant Branagh. Yeah, it's a train wreck. Just a train wreck. You don't do that. And the thing that kills me about it is that all the bad decisions that are in it, whether it's acting or directing or anything, the cinematography, the decision to mush all the various editions all together, all of those decisions are the kind of bad decision that a sophomore English major would make. I wouldn't be so hard on the thing if it were full of mistakes that a seasoned director could make. But Scott Jones says note dependent books. That's why old satire, i.e. E.G. Stern, leaves me cold. Not funny anymore. Takes one right out of the story. Yeah, I agree. If you have to look up humor, yeah, then there's precious little left. That's why I'm not the biggest fan of Shakespeare comedies, because most of the things that make them really funny were really topical. They still work for an audience. They still work. There's still bits that will always work. Scott Jones says, "Oh no, you Tolstoy 111 is back on this subject. I really hated that film of Merchant of Venice with Al Pacino. As far away from comedy as you can get. We'll likely never see that play as a comedy again." Well, no, and we shouldn't see it as a comedy. Oh God, that's right. We have a long tradition, you and I, don't we? I'm hoping that we never do see The Merchant of Venice as a comedy again. Sid, I'm trying to read all of Tomb of Dracula this month, and the art is so gorgeous. I agree. Don't let the art distract you from the writing, though. The writing is weird and really signaturely weird. There are some characters that show up around the issue 20 or issue 30 mark of that book, stick around for issue after issue after issue, that are decidedly strange, decidedly weird, and convincing, almost novelistic. I think this is the first time I've actually been able to notice the importance of good inking in comics. Yeah. Oh, wait, where'd you go? Jeff says, unfortunately, too late, Steve. I was behind a lady in the checkout line at the grocery store with a tower of toilet paper. Probably it's happening all over. As the story percolates, probably it's happening all over. But toilet paper will not be affected. Those are just Trump cult members. Street Medic says, David Suchet as Poirot is just as Jeremy Brett is Sherlock Holmes and Joan Hickson is Miss Marple. I agree. They're all perfect. Just perfect. J. Scott Phillips, I pre-ordered The Last Dangerous Visions, and it just arrived. Did I choose wisely? No, you did not. Michael Lombardo, where would a new reader start with Marilyn Robinson? Housekeeping. Freeman says, I'm reading Empire of the Damned this month. I enjoyed Empire of the Vampire immensely, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the story goes. If you enjoyed it, it's good, breezy, brainless fun. If you enjoyed the first one, you'll enjoy the second one. I don't think it'll have any surprises as to where it goes. Mark says, I'm sure you met dozens of Donahues in Ireland, but were you able to confirm a relationship to any of them? Irish family trees are more like family wreaths, French Canadian ones too. I think so. I think I was pretty convincingly. It was never really an interest of mine. It turned out to be even less interesting when I was there. It just seems so stereotypical and standout and awkward. And I never liked to be any of those when I was traveling, so I largely just abandoned it. Kevin Compton was next. Branagh's Henry V was that amazing, iconic beginning with Darab Jacobi as the chorus. Lord, that was so great. I agree. Yeah, and it just keeps giving you moments like that, right, all throughout the play. The one that will be watched repeatedly next week being Brian Blessed in full armor at the French court. He'll make your Louvre shake for it. He'll make your Palace Louvre shake for it. Tennis balls, my lord. We'll probably watch that again with a very old Paul Scofield. Hannah's Books is back. The tragedies are much funnier than the comedies. The comic bits in the tragedies are much funnier than the comedies because they have to be, and they tend to work. The comic eruptions in the tragedies tend to be very funny. If that's what you mean, you probably don't because we never agree on this, but that's what I think. Kevin Compton, I have been kind of hoping that Biden would do something truly obnoxiously autocratic, just embrace that Roberts Court lust for Trump and show them what it is good for, but he won't. That's one of the things that those future non-American historians will puzzle over. Why decent people did not abandon decency in order to stop the darkness from falling. They could see clearly that their decency was in the way, and they could see clearly the price that would be paid, and they just, more important to be decent, more important to both sides things, more important to give everybody a fair shake, even though we know what's coming, and even though we know that when it comes, they're going to kill us. They're not going to debate us. They're going to murder us and our families. But we still need to be decent. Auntie Gaia says, my goodness, I absolutely loved Al Pacino as Shylock in that movie, especially during the Hath Not a Jew Eyes part. I did too. I just didn't want to get Tolstoy 111 going. That's all. Hannah's Book says, my vote for M. Robinson is definitely housekeeping, but I'm eager to hear your answer, Steve. Oh, it was housekeeping. Yeah, we agree. J. Scott Phillips, didn't Gene Colan base his Dracula on Jack Palance? Or was it Robert Shaw? It was Jack Palance. But it's not even the artwork. I love the artwork, don't get me wrong, but the writing, it's not just the side characters either. It's the way Dracula is written. It's so entertaining. He is such a grandiloquent, whiny, evil bad guy. It's absolutely delightful. And now that I'm talking about it, of course, I'm going to read a bunch of these tonight when I really can't spare the time. Street Medic, speaking of Shakespeare, how do you think The Taming of the Shrew will be interpreted in today's political climate? Well, gee, I just hope we don't lose sight of it as a comedy. Let's stop staging Taming of a Shrew. Let's just stop doing it. Let's stop assigning it and stop staging it. Okay. Tolstoy 111. No, the chat jumped, but I want to see what you're wrong about now. I meant that Shylock could have a certain glee. He's a comic villain. Check out the 1980 BBC version with Warren Mitchell. He's not a comic villain. I don't care what Shakespeare would have thought. I don't care what the codpiece wearing people in the audience thought. He's not a comic villain. There's no way to play The Merchant of Venice as a comedy after the Holocaust. so you shouldn't be thinking about it. It's lost. Just let it go. Just let it go. There's plenty of other comedy out there. Matt Sheridan, hi Steve. Sorry I'm late to the party. Well, that's all right. We're leaving. We're wrapping things up. Peyton says, I must be asking too many questions. My bad. What? I don't see where that's coming from. Did I slap you around? Probably because you asked a dumb question. Happens all the time. People ask dumb questions all the time. Street Medic, tennis balls. Yes. It's likely that I will be watching that scene while pickled in very little time. Matt Sheridan, if there's any wine left. Wine is actually on the port shortage list. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Matt Sheridan says, I'm going to start my research for my thesis proposal on Frankenstein next week. Good for you. Siva says, I have you watch Vlad Vexler's channel. Don't know that name at all. Sure, I would remember it. Jeff Manjares says, Brian Blessed as Exeter is beyond epic. Giving that man a mace was one of the greatest cinematic decisions ever made. Auntie Gaia says, I love the morbid humor of the gravedigger scene in Hamlet as well. The bard had much wit indeed. Mark says, so you tried to be as nondescript as possible while traveling. All right, spill it. Which laws did this approach help you break? I'm sure the statute of limitations has passed. No, I meant only that I tried not to act like an obnoxious American. Nondescript, inconspicuous is not really possible when you've got a crowd of dogs around you. That's not really possible to do. People are going to remember that. But aside from that, I tried to speak without an accent. I tried to dress like people. I tried not to do dumb touristy things. I was always happy that I did. I always got more out of the experience by not doing that. Uh, uh, Echo Fall says humor can bridge gaps in time in many ways. The part of Moby Dick in Nantucket where Queequeg locks the door had me laughing. Could be from a modern sitcom. People weren't as different as I thought. David Sloan says, Steve, I'd do abysmal things to get you to make a nonfiction Western canon starter kit. Well, there was a lot of nonfiction in the Western canon starter kit. Oh, the chat jumped again. Kevin JN says, I know you don't wear pants, but do you put on the family tartan on St. Patrick's Day? No. Michael Lombardo, how far north are you headed next week? Connecticut or Vermont or both, ye gods? I'm not going anywhere. David Sloan, I think I must abandon the NFL game tonight to watch this 28-year-old hottie rant and ramble. Well, not for long. We do have to wrap things up. I'm thinking about wine. I should probably go to the local wine shop. And I mean, he has thousands of bottles of wine. He can't possibly have empty racks if I go tomorrow. Jeff says, my comics reading has been bouncing around between Tomb of Dracula and Conan. Love when you and Michael K. Vaughan remind me to revisit beloved titles from the dim past. And we didn't do an Epic Comic Book Wednesday this week. And I haven't heard many complaints about that, but still, it is a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to go back to Tomb of Dracula tonight, at least for a few. Street Medic, I bet Steve has a cod piece made of actual cod. No, not much there to protect. Peyton says, you skipped me a few times. LOL. It's okay, though. You answered the good ones, so I'm happy. I'm not skipping any comments. No use screaming over it, right? Through the red light. Emergency's over. Anti-Guy says, Steve, what is the fundamental difference between Hamas and Hezbollah? At what point does it just look like a war on Muslims? Are you trying to get me banned from YouTube? Hamas and Hezbollah have one overriding goal. The college undergraduates who are cheering them on would say I'm wrong about this, but they have one overriding goal. That overriding goal is often mistakenly described as a destruction of the state of Israel. That is not true, and that is not in their founding documents. It's the destruction of Jews everywhere, including Connecticut. As long as they have that as a fundamental similarity, I don't really care what the differences are. And you say a war on Muslims. There's a lot of polling that indicates that those overriding goals of Hamas and Hezbollah are shared by large swaths of many Muslim communities in many different countries. There's a large amount of polling to suggest that. I'm not saying a war on all Muslims. I'm saying there's a large amount of polling to show that the reason why Hamas and Hezbollah are voted in is because they have those views, not despite that. Anyway, David Galloway says, do you buy bookmarks or use what would otherwise be pieces of trash? I don't use pieces of trash in my books, no. But a lot of I don't really buy them either. Usually I find them in other used books. That helps a lot. J. Scott Phillips, you lost your American accent while traveling. Can we hear an example of your Irish accent? Well, it's just possible that I am suppressing an accent right now. And that I have been suppressing an accent for 9,000 videos. It's just possible, right? It's possible to do. Sarah Bell says, hi, Steve, late again. We'll have to watch replay. Yes, you will. Every single minute. Tolstoy 111, Harold Bloom said that Petruchio and Katerina walk off stage to have a very happy marriage. He would say that, wouldn't he? Echo Fall says, it's me in the ambulance. I'm dying. Sorry for the noise. J. Scott Phillips says, what is the wine of choice at Hyde Cottage? I as I'm with CJ Craig. It's wine. You drink it. Street Medic says, don't look at me. I'm retired. Yes, it's not you out there. David Sloan, Steve, I've got a slightly pretentious physics professor that believes there is no real literature in the fantasy genre. I've recommended Mervyn Peake and Lord Dunsany. Others I should mention. It's probably a waste of your time. If his mind is, this is why I don't recommend romance novels to people. If the mind is closed towards a genre, then it's a waste of time to recommend specific books. It's not like that anyone. It's not like a one specific book is going to change a snobbery. You need the snobbery needs to be changed first. Anti Gaia says, Steve, what's the weirdest thing you've ever found in the pages of a used book? Well, various notes have been really strange. I found a note once that said, I did it and I'm not sorry. And that was really ominous. I had no idea what that was about. I've found postcards and letters that went into great detail about things, or I wanted to know more. A couple of times I found old letters pressed into the pages of some dumb old novel where the letter was much more interesting than the whole novel. Michael Lombardo says, I wanted some red wine last weekend, got the least expensive bottle I could find. There was an Atlantic cover story back in April about the end of the American Jew. Are those two things related, or you're just segueing from one to the other? The New Terror Billy. I don't know that at all. Steve, what do you think about Charles Bukowski's books? They stink. Hannah's book says, well, by wine, you mean cheap red, right? Yes, I do. J. Scott Phillips says, not your Boston accent, your Irish accent. What I'm saying is, never mind. Never mind. Alex Hardy says, I'm on the second of Ken Follett's Night Kingsbridge books. And so far, I find them amazing. Are you a fan? I am. And do you find his Century trilogy or other works on par with these? I really like the Century trilogy. I really do. Maybe not on par with the Kingsbridge stuff, but I really like it. Street Medic says, I read a short story once where a guy found a bat's wing in an old book. Jeff says, Steve, do you enjoy Seabury Quinn's Jules de Grandin stories? Not at all. No. Look, Ma. Look how clever I am, Ma. I've read several and I haven't made up my mind yet. To me, they are the worst kind of pulpy posturing. I like writing that takes things seriously. It doesn't have to be serious writing, but I want the author to be taking things seriously, even if he's joking. Let's see here. Seaver Brunstein, did you find it annoying that everyone in the media was clutching their pearls saying, thank goodness the bullets missed? I have a hard time hearing the standard mantra now. It's just mentioned casually in conversation now. It is a part of their mental geography now for MAGA. Is that this guy took a bullet to the head? That phrase, this guy took a bullet to the head. He did not. He did not. We live in an age of cameras and replays. He did not. But anyway, David Sloan, thoughts on Marilyn Robinson's Gilead? It's wonderful. Scott Jones says, I heard a man on YouTube going on about the proper storage of books being to lay them flat to protect the text block. Surely there's not much to that, is there? Well, I'd be the last person to know about the proper storage of books. I know that if you lay them flat and lay things on top of them, that's dangerous. According to Jason Harrigan, that will cock them. J. Scott Phillips, have you ever read Milton, Captain? Oh, you've worked in a clever have you read? By quoting Star Trek. Sid says, what are your thoughts on the Jack Henke show? I believe that says it all. Okay, I have no idea what this name is. It's not in English. Steve, do you enjoy Jorge Luis Borges? I do, very much so. Mark says, Jesus H. Christ, the number of questions tonight that could get Steve kicked off YouTube. I know. Quite a few of them. I'm trying to do the best I can here. I surely can't get kicked off YouTube for simply noticing what's in the charters of Hamas and Hezbollah. I mean, it's written down. I'm not making anything up. They say it all the time on their own state media. They're not making a secret of it at all. They do not. That letter that I read from the TLS today was absolutely true. They have absolutely no interest in peaceful coexistence. Those organizations don't. I'm not saying all Arabs or all Palestinians, but those organizations are not interested in peaceful coexistence with Jews. You're navigating with finesse. So I hope so. I said I don't want to get kicked off YouTube until the end of the year. I don't want to get kicked off YouTube. Peyton says, how do you feel about Chris Cuomo calling Trump and apologizing he's going through a hard time? I like his podcast, but sometimes he just gets on my nerves. You shouldn't like his podcast. He's a quisling. He's a fascist enabler. He wants you to be a slave. If you live in this country, I don't know, Peyton, if you do or not, but if you live in this country, he wants you to be a slave. He's willing to be one himself, and he wants you to be one too. This is not a question of a hard-fought, slightly unconventional Republican candidate. This is a guy who wants to tear up the Constitution and rule as a dictator by his own words. If you're courteous to him and call him to apologize for how he's being treated, you're a fascist enabler. Street Medic says, can't remember what happened with the bat's wing, but I remember correctly it was the monkey's paw and granted wishes that went wrong. Michael Lombardo says, so which days upcoming will there be only a smattering of Steve videos? Ooh, it could happen. It could happen. Call me Ishmael. That's my name, Ishmael. Okay. Michael Lombardo, and that close-up is the thumbnail. David Sloan says, starting Guns of August tonight, Steve. Good for you. Street Medic says, so who's the definitive Charlie Chan? I have a sweet spot for Warner Oland, although I could say Peter Sellers now, couldn't I? Say your prepositions. That drives me crazy. That new Terror Billy. What do you think about Albert Camus books? Not a big fan. J. Scott Phillips, it didn't work. I thought my have you read question would coax at least a Scottish accent out of you. You are a formidable opponent. Well, it never coaxed a formidable accent, a Scottish accent out of Jimmy Doohan. So why should it coax one out of me? It's a shame for a good Scotsman to admit it, but I'm not exactly up on my Milton. Peyton says, oh, I do live in MN. Damn, that scared me. Thanks for the response, though. I shouldn't watch him anymore. What was that in relation to? I don't know what that was in relation to. Minnesota. It doesn't matter anyway. Minnesota is a fine state. Fine state. Some very interesting people come out of Minnesota. Some of them leave Minnesota and go elsewhere. But anyway, I think we should start wrapping this up. Don't you? This has been enormous amounts of fun, but we've been going 2 hours. It has felt like 5 minutes. DT says, so I don't hate everything Stephen King writes. Am I a bad reader? No. You're reading to enjoy. I hope that's what you should be doing. You should be reading to enjoy. Anti-Gaia says, which I don't care what you don't like, what you don't hate, or what you like in Stephen King. I care what you try to defend. Because it's the stuff's indefensible. Critically, it's indefensible. If you like it, that's fine by me. Anti-Gaia says, which novel will Joyce Carol Oates be most remembered for? Blonde, perhaps? None. Controversial opinion? None. Tolstoy 111, for me, the hardest thing to play in Merchant of Venice today is Act 5, where Shylock's daughter never mentions him. Directors really jump through the hoops to get around that. Ishmael says, best movie you watched recently? Well, that's a toss-up. There are two things now vying for my mind. Nosferatu and Megalopolis. They are now vying for my mind. There are two movies starring very tall, 6-pack-a-day tobacco addicts, and I don't know which of them I prefer. Peyton says Chris Cuomo and MN meaning Minnesota. Well, I know what MN means. Sarah Bell says, wondering what's happening at the end of the year that you'll be gone. Yeah, there's no point in me trying to explain it, but I will be gone. But I might come back. J. Scott Phillips says, well played, my good sir. He's doing this kind of, he's got this kind of the greatest game thing going on his own. There's a happy, normal live stream happening, but he's got a parallel drama going on. Well met. Not a fan of the ladies, are you, Trebek? Monet Doyle, I have a million thoughts about the book I'm reading. Those are always the best kind. Jeff says, now I want to watch Murder by Death and Henry V this weekend. So you got the reference. Oh, the great Maggie Smith. I'm not a Frenchie. I'm a Belgie. Anyway, Alan Cowley, sorry I'm late. Just one quick question. Is Creation Lake really as good as the reviews are saying? No, it is not. No, it is not. I know what the reviews are saying. I know some of the reviewers have been in this room, but it is not. And again, as with all contemporary fiction, you're going to be able to get this at your library. Every library will have it thanks to the reviews it's getting. So I'm not asking you to trust me. Feel free to try it yourself. It is not anywhere near as good as what critics are saying. I don't know why they're all saying it. Maybe they're bored. Street Medic says, so what makes a good romance book cover? Paul Marin. Anti-Gaia says, I want to see The Apprentice so bad. David Sloan says, Nosferatu, oh Steve, I fear you've lost credibility. I don't think so. I don't think so. Ishmael says, thanks for this great session. Wasn't that nice? DT says, how do you like Tom LeClaire as a critic? He really likes David Foster Wallace, postmodernist stuff, and the literature of excess. I'm rather fond of him as a critic. I am currently his publisher. So I'm rather fond of him as a critic. Michael, I don't have to agree with people to like their work. Michael Lombardo says, I missed the first 90 minutes. If there's an absence of Steve this weekend, I won't feel deserted. There won't be an absence of Steve this weekend. We'll do another Steve stream tomorrow, I hope. But next week, there may be an absence of Steve. Peyton says, when you leave at the end of the year, so you mean your apartment or the internet or both, why do I think you turn into a dog during the holiday season? I can't explain it. I've tried many times. It's I will be gone middle of December. Anti-Gaia says, Steve, not Nosferatu, vampires, where it's at according to film bros. Well, I'm not a film bro. And I'm not talking about the old black and white movie. I'm talking about the new thing, the new Nosferatu. Confusingly with what's his name, who was just in Renfield. he just played Renfield. Nicky Holt is in it, and also Willem Dafoe, who is just fantastic. This guy, I mean, how many movies have I seen him in the last 10 years? He's fantastic in every one of them. He added actual acting gravitas to that latest Spider-Man movie as Norman Osborn. He acted actual. He's just always great. I think he is so undersung. Anyway, Peyton says, like a werewolf, LOL, I'll pull myself together eventually. J. Scott Phillips says, that was a Scottish accent. I win. Alan Cowley says, so I assume Intermezzo is also a little overhyped. Anti-Guy says, do you recommend Man in Full by Tom Wolfe? I do. Very much so. Very much so. Street Medic says, Nosferatu is my favorite vampire movie. Yeah, but you mean the original, the black and white one. I'm sure you mean that. And I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the remake with a 6-pack-a-day tobacco addict in the title role. J. Scott Phillips says, after the Steve stream, should I curl up with Becky Sharp or Harlan Ellison? Becky Sharp. Definitely not Harlan Ellison. Although you're going to want to validate, if you made a purchase, people want to validate their purchases. So maybe try this latest thing. Good Lord. What possessed you? Why don't people run their purchases by me? I swear. Street Medic says, yes, the original. Yes, but I'm not talking about the original. I'm talking about the remake that I don't think is out yet. So I'm not sure. People are talking about it. I'm not sure that they've seen it. But there's that and there's Megalopolis, and they're competing for the halves of my brain. David Sloan says, what's your favorite vape flavor? It's cancer. It's cancer. So I don't indulge. And I try to stay away from people who do, because it's just as cancerous secondhand as it is firsthand. And everything that you've read, all the consoling studies that say, no, it's not, we're all paid for by the tobacco industry. So they are untrustworthy. They are not true. Tolstoy 111 says there was a remake of Nosferatu in the late 70s with Frank Langella. No, there wasn't. There was a remake of Dracula in the late 70s with Frank Langella. Street Medic says some movies should not be remade. No, that's absolutely false. That's absolutely false. Remake the hell out of everything. Yes, Maximus Status says remake everything. I say, so do I. You say some movies should not be remade, and what I want to do is pull a Jed Bartlett and say, what are the next 10 words? Explain why. Give me a reason why. And you can do it. You can say reasons. I've heard that opinion many times in my life, but all the reasons that come after that are terrible. There are no good reasons. So you have to resort to all the reasons that come after a statement like some movies should not be remade boil down to, I don't want to die. I don't want to get old. They all eventually boil down to that. And who cares? Everybody gets old. Echo Fall says, not a fan of cancer. I prefer strawberry. No, you shouldn't for anything. It is fundamentally foolish to burn your own lung tissue. So don't do it. All of this stuff is intensely carcinogenic. Intensely so. Anti-Guy says, thanks, Steve. Just ordered a Kindle copy of Man in Full. Yeah. Well, I mean, you saw Jared Henderson's video about how you don't own your Kindle books. Maybe you have Caliber, the app Caliber, where you can strip the DRM from the book and retitle it, recover it, put it in a database of your own so that you actually have it, so that you can actually put it on another device. Maybe you're going to do that. Siva Bronstein says, Piers Morgan wants to know. He doesn't watch this live stream. One person whose name is fairly well known does watch my channel, but I don't think he watches live streams. But do you condemn Hamas? JK, I know I don't want to get you kicked off. Surely it won't get me kicked off YouTube to say that I condemn an avowed position of wanting to eliminate all Jews from the planet. Surely that will not get me kicked off the platform to say that I condemn anyone who has that as an avowed goal. Anyone or any group of anyone's. Surely that will not. Anti-Guy says, Piers Morgan, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I defend him constantly. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. At least that breaking news story from a couple of weeks ago about how so many right-wing influencers were bought by the Kremlin, at least that stopped Tim Pool from saying he was liberal. At least that stopped him from doing that. Ridiculous for these Trump cult shills to say that, but they always do. Jeff says, what is your favorite Dracula movie? I flip-flop between Louis Jordan version and Coppola's film. Probably it would be the Coppola film. Probably it would be. Street Medic, well, maybe movies that are sweeted. Yeah, but I don't get that. I don't know what that means. Tolstoy 11, just don't condemn David Foster Wallace, or off YouTube you go. He's slowly disappearing, as I predicted. His acolytes are hanging on. The dude bros are hanging on. But he's slowly disappearing. He'll be a weird footnote of the twee over-egged books of the early 21st century, in some minor footnote of literary history written by someone who's not an American. He'll be that. In due time, he'll be that. Kirill Pushkin, hi, Steve. Why did you skip my question on Ukraine? I am not skipping questions. That's the second time someone has said that. I'm not skipping questions. I'm reading everything. DT says, how do you like financial writer Michael Lewis as a great storyteller? I think he's pretty good. Scott Jones says, as to remaking movies, I agree in principle, but are there not movies that are so much a relic of their time that they ought not to stay back there? Oh, well, okay. All right. Sure. Yes. If it's a bad movie, if it was a bad movie to start with, there's no way to save it. I'm not asking for Triumph of the Will to be made again, or Birth of a Nation. If it's a bad movie, sure, then you don't have to. But if you're saying some movies should never be remade because I saw this when I was able to do toe touches, and I don't want to not be able to do toe touches, so anything after this is bad. No. If it was a great original version or a great earlier version, I'm going to want the new version to be really, really good or different in some way, but not a prohibition. No, not at all. David Sloan says, Steve, you actually did skip my last question. I did not. I am not skipping questions. All right. Well, I'm not going to defend myself in terms of visible reality. If you're answering someone else's question, I'm going to skip it. I'm not, because you're talking to someone else, but I'm not skipping questions. I'm not going to debate whether or not I'm doing what I am not doing. So, but anyway, Tolstoy 111, you were right about Updike, so I like the odds. I am right. I was right. It was hard to be right. I was alone being right 45 years ago, 50 years ago. I was alone being right about these people, saying they are doomed. As soon as they're not around to pump air into their own reputations, they'll go away. I was alone saying that then. But I was right, and I will be right about David Foster Wallace as well. DT says, was James Agee's film criticism any good? He seems to have generated a lot of praise when he was writing his film columns. I think they're all right. I haven't read a lot of them to make a database really in my head. J. Scott Phillips says, is there a best screen version of Vanity Fair, TV or movie? No. Not even best. There's no one that's even good. No, there isn't. Anti-Guy says, let's have a remake of Risky Business. Can you imagine what that would be like? It's a classic, but there are ways that it could be snappier. David Sloan asked if you had thoughts on Benjamin McAvoy's YouTube channel. I do have lots of thoughts on Benjamin McAvoy's YouTube channel. To put it mildly, I'm not a fan. The new Tara Billy says, what do you think about story-focused video game based on books? I don't know enough about them. I don't know. I don't think I know anything about them at all. Echo Fall says, I think you did. It was Benjamin McAvoy question between two Piers Morgan messages. Oh my God. I am not going to argue about whether or not I am doing something. My God. I am not skipping questions. If I missed it, fine. I am not skipping questions implies I'm seeing something and deciding I don't want to answer it. Street Medic says, Be Kind Rewind movie with Jack Black. He remakes movies and calls them sweated because, sweeted because he claims they're from Sweden. Right. Okay. I missed that completely. Jeff says, by the way, Steve, thank you for a great idea. My home society is doing a Dracula read-along in October. It's been a blast thus far. I was very tempted to do another Dracula read-aloud, even though I've already done it. I was very tempted to do it. This last Dracula read-aloud I did not do alone. I did it with Mark from Book Time with Elvis and Micah Cummins. So I thought about just doing it by myself, but I don't know about October. Michael Lombardo says, are you still a balloon handler in the Rose Parade on New Year's Day? Do you know which balloon this year? That is where you're doing the holidays right now. I'm not a balloon handler. T says, what do you think of Tolkien's poetry? How good is he as a poet? He has a new book out collecting his poetry. It's a beautiful thing, beautiful set of things. And I like a lot of his poetry. So I've got that set on the way. I'll try to be very gentle with it. It's very nice. So I'm nearly really made for nice books. Kirill Pushkin says, okay, Steve, apparently I cannot ask you a question on Ukraine. Sorry, why cannot US help Ukraine? Well, US is helping Ukraine an enormous amount. But the US has to stop short of fighting Russia for what I would hope would be obvious reasons. We can supply Ukraine with the tools. And the Ukrainians have shown that they can do a lot with a little. Their resistance to Russian aggression has been amazing with the tools provided to them by Europe and by the United States. But the United States can't, that is help, but the United States can't do any more than that. Because we obviously don't want a direct military confrontation between the two nuclear powers. We obviously don't want that. Anti-Guy says, Steve doesn't skip questions. You're confusing him with J.D. Vance. Kirill Pushkin says, your sensitive questions get automatically blocked. Hannah's book says, there is a fabulous version of Vanity Fair as a play by Kate Hamill. If you ever get a chance to see it, I highly recommend it. And the book is fabulous. Street Medic says, I don't think movies should be remade because I like the original, and I really don't think movies shouldn't be remade. I just think some movies are just so good, I don't see how they could do better. Well, maybe the goal is to do different and not better. and there's always room for that if the book is good. Kirill Pushkin says, no, the reasons are not obvious. Sorry. I don't know what that is in reference to. Oh, Benjamin McAvoy, probably. He would just, let's just say he and I have completely different views of reading. Completely different, completely opposing views of reading. Kirill Pushkin says, their nukes are all rusty. I wouldn't want to find out. Nobody wants to find out. Tolstoy 111 says, a bad remake will just be forgotten. No. Excuse me. No harm, no foul. Yes, like the remake of Lion in Winter with Patrick Stewart and Glenn Close. DT says, have you been watching Comics Matter, Zach, lately? What do you think of him laying into the critical drinker for lying about the movies he's been watching? It's been very interesting. It's been very interesting. At first, I thought These Sour Grapes, the critical drinker is on Piers Morgan. He's on in national and international shows now with his haircut and his background and whatnot. And Comics Matter has got to think that should have been him. The critical drinker would not have started making videos without him. So part of me thinks, is this just sour grapes? But some of his criticism seems pretty spot on as well. Street Medic says it was more of a rhetorical statement than a literal one. Oh, right. Okay. Well, those are the same thing, but that's all right. Scott Jones says, what say you about Tolkien's version of Sigurd and Gudrun? I received it as a gift. If you didn't pay for it, I have no objections. You'll find it diverting, would be the damning critic word. You'll find it diverting. Anti-Guy says, speaking of Ukraine, that whole interaction between Trump and Zelensky was awkward as all heck. Oh my God. It was so embarrassing. It was so mortifying. Just a guy trying to defend his country standing next to a mob boss saying, oh, it takes two to tango. I'm really good friends with the guy who's trying to kill you. So, I don't know why Zelensky did it. I really don't know why he did. On some level, I can think, well, he wants to curry favor with a man who might become president, but he has got to know that no amount of favor currying in the world is going to save him. If that's true, if that happens. DT says, do you dislike the Arthurian myths in general? Are you tired of them? Your last few streams brought up some disappointment with people making adaptations. Some adaptations. Lev Grossman's new book is great. It's an Arthurian adaptation. The Once Future King is one of my favorite novels. It's an Arthurian. No, it can be overdone or poorly done, but some of them I really like. Tolstoy 111, at least better than Food, doesn't charge a monthly fee for close reading sessions. I'm amazed that he doesn't. Carol Pushkin, Steve, what do you think about the brothers Strugatsky and Stanislaw Lem? I don't like either one of them. They have merit, literarily speaking, I'm sure, but they come awful close to being what I described 2 hours ago of being conversation stoppers. Very intentional conversation stoppers. Oh, what's that you say? You like science fiction? How about this minor work from the brothers Strugatsky? When you know that the person you're talking to, the science fiction fan you're talking to, has not read it and doesn't know who they are, you know that. You are not trying to further the conversation. You are trying to stop the conversation so that you can monologue. And they're not that, but both of them, Lem and the Strugatsky brothers, come awful close to that, to being that. Steve Bronstein says, sometimes our comments don't appear to you. Not sure what causes this. Maybe the use of certain terminology. If they don't appear, they're being wholesale removed because I'm not seeing any annotations of any comments that I'm missing. Again, I am not going to debate whether or not I am skipping comments. I'm not. I'll probably debate what you people do. I'm not going to debate what I'm doing. David Sloan says, recently got a beautiful illustrated copy of Leaves of Grass. Would you give it or Moby Dick or something else? The Nod is the greatest piece of American lit. Well, I would call them both great works of 19th century American lit. I wouldn't give a one piece. It would be century by century. Jeff says, yeah, I love Patrick Stewart since Claudius, but that remake of Lion in Winter he shows is unspeakably awful. The new Terror Billy, is Paul Auster's New York trilogy worth reading? Yes. Michael Lombardo says, is there another presidential debate? If there's another presidential debate, would you consider a live stream during it to get Steve reactions in real time? Not in a million years. There won't be one, though. Anti-Gaia says, there won't be another debate as long as Trump doesn't get Jesse Waters as the moderator. He won't do it. He knows he's lying about it. He's been lying about the last debate for 2 weeks now, but he knows he was a laughingstock of the entire world. He knows that. For that one bit about cats and dogs, he knows that. He knows television. He doesn't know much, but he knows television. And he doesn't want to risk that. It's the worst thing in the world to him is to be a laughingstock. He doesn't think about the fact that he always is. DT says, from what I gather, Comics Matter seems to get anxiety when he's performing. He rejected Joe Rogan's interview request. He seems the type who might lock up at such a thing. Street Medic says there's not going to be another debate. Be good. Trump is a coward. Tolstoy 111 says, but both the Strugatzis and Lem were the source of Tarkovsky. There we go. More conversation stoppers. And everyone at a party would know Tarkovsky. No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. It's just a desire, a mechanism which you should train yourself not to do. It's a mechanism to stop conversation so that you can monologue. And that is bad. That is really, really bad. Better by far to adopt the exact opposite approach in conversation, which is to ask questions that you already know the answers to, as a direct prophylactic against lecturing, against monologuing. If someone says, I just got a Siberian Husky, I have no idea what they're like, instead of saying, the breed was actually developed, instead say, well, what are your concerns? What are you seeing? Whether you know about the subject or not. But anyway, DT says, since Tolkien's intent was writing a new mythology for England, why did the Arthurian legends not qualify as mythology for England for him? Well, I think maybe it was because he wasn't a big fan of Mallory and was thinking that these things need an epic that they never got. I think he's one of the many dyed-in-the-wool bookworms who kind of wished that Milton had done an Arthurian legend epic instead of the fall of man. Steve Bronstein says, why is it that we are able to get away with helping Ukraine at all without Russia retaliating against us in equal measure? It's just the rules of the game. That's all. This is proxy warfare. The United States has a long history of proxy warfare. It's not direct opposition. So I mean, Russia is backed into a corner anyway. If they were going to react aggressively, they'd have done it before now. We've been crippling them with economic sanctions for a long time. They basically don't have much of an economy. If we were to put U.S. troops in the field, well, first of all, no sitting president is going to do that. For Poland, maybe. For NATO, maybe, but not for Ukraine. It's just the rules of the game. That's all. Street Medic says, I think Waltz did pretty good against Vance. We disagree there. He should have gone for the jugular, and he didn't. It was his strategy not to. It was his strategy to appear as a normal guy, an avuncular normal guy. Look, this is what we're offering you. I'm a normal guy. But he shouldn't have. He should have torn the guy apart. Steve Bronstein, and to be sure, I'm all for helping Ukraine. I was born there. David Sloan says, I think you should make a tier list of booktubers, naturally placing the tier list booktubers at the bottom tier. Tolstoy 111, my Tarkovsky comment was a joke. Am I that humorless? Yes, you are, my dear. Echo Falls is responding to Steve Bronstein. Andy Guy says, Tarkovsky is so boring. I agree. Carol Pushkin says, what do you not like in the billions years to the end of the... What did you not like in the billions years to the end of the world? Sorry, translating directly from Russian. These are Strugatskys. They're books. Okay. I think I'm piecing together what you mean there. But I think their books are just talky, clunky, one-dimensional, boring. I realize they have fans. I'm not saying they shouldn't have fans. But the U.S. does it for Israel. Come on. Well, no. When Israel was struck by missiles from Iran, Israel retaliated to Iran, and the United States did not. The United States does the same thing. They supply Israel enormously, but they don't take the field against Israel's enemies. Steve Bronstein says, I heard somewhere Zelensky must think Trump may be amenable. That's insane. I know. That's the only reason I can think of, but it's insane. Absolutely insane. And that's just based on Trump's public comments. Who knows what he says in private? No, that's just insane. He is not amenable. I don't get that at all. Street Medic says, for a horrible country, Russia has some good writers, great writers, some of the greatest writers in the world. Scott Jones says, I agree about conversation, that asking questions and being interested in people is one of the best things you can do. When we show interest in others, they actually think you're interesting. Well, it's not just self-serving. It's also better. It's a more congenial way to do conversation. If you're going to the only acceptable situation for monologuing is if I'm the one monologuing over wine and calzones here at Hyde Cottage. Anti-Guy says, I thought the debate was worth it just for the comment about January 6th toward the end. Vance took the mask off. I could not believe that he was saying that Donald Trump handed over power peacefully. I could not believe it. And MAGA will believe it. They believe he looks like that portrait, that AI portrait. They'll believe whatever they're told. They will reorder reality, their own reality, to whatever they're told. That's really dangerous. When that's 140 million people, that's really dangerous. Kirill Pushkin says, no, that was the title of the book, Forrest Strugatsky. Okay. Scott Jones says, so much better than monologuing. Ben Bell, hey, Steve, do you like Richard Russo? Sometimes. I'm halfway through Nobody's Fool and enjoying it. Yeah, sometimes I like him. Other times, no. Other times he's phoning in his books. Tolstoy 111, appreciating Andrei Rublev, demands an explication of focal lengths, which I will gladly. Okay. You say just kidding, but have you done that? Fess up now. Have you done that? Nick Piccarilli, it was great that they waited 90 minutes to ask about January 6th. I think it should have been a catastrophe. It should. The telling points about Vance were when he whined about being fact checked, which is something only a liar will do, and when he said that Trump handed over power peacefully. But there should have been a lot more blood in the water than that. That's pretty small considering what a monster this guy is. DT says, so what is the demarcation between what makes the thing an epic and the Arthurian legends? The epic treatment, I think. I think it's the epic treatment. And that might just arise from a serial underappreciation of Mallory. It just might be that simple. It might be just a serial underestimation of the glory of Les Morts d'Arthur, which is the epic these people seem to think that the Arthurian legends need. I don't understand that, but anyway, we're going to wrap this up. Echo Fall says, as a Brit, I wish I could look across the pond and laugh, but there's so much geopolitical tension right now that man could ruin us all. Yeah, you're not across the pond at all. There are 4 U.S. nuclear submarines off the coast of your country right now, any one of which could irradiate your country to the loss of all the life on board, of all the life in the island. Any one of those submarines could do that. And they're well inside the shield of your preparedness, any of your defenses. It would all be over before you could launch a single countermeasure. That's just one. There are 4 of those submarines in close proximity to the shore of your island right now. And 10 military bases on your soil. So you're not just across the pond. You're just across the street. All those military bases will be under his command. So you're right. This man could ruin us all. That is absolutely true. M. Kundera says, how does one wrangle an invitation to Hyde Cottage to talk about books and eat your food? It happens. Some people do it. There are a couple of people in this chat. If Hannah's still here, there are a couple of people in this chat who've had that invitation. Hannah is here. She's had that invitation. She's been here with the bean. That did not even ask about January 6th. Walsh had to raise it, right? Or did I miss it? Yeah. Were prepared from the beginning to let this insurrectionist scumbag hook. Ancient history. I'm looking to the future. Sloan, Steve, do you have a favorite breed of dog? Oh, you cop out with an answer about loving them all. I do love them all. It's not a cop out. Longtime viewers of my channel will know the answer to this question. I hesitate to say it when I've got a little miniature schnauzer pressed against me. I won't say favorite. I lived for a long time, longer than most of you have been alive, with beagles. Lots and lots of beagles. Lots and lots of them. I won't say favorite, though. Michael Lombardo says, during the Great Boston Meetup, was there talk of any virtual chats? Maybe. Good luck with that. Good luck. Good luck with that. But at least the meetup happened. Wasn't that incredible? The meetup at last did happen. But virtual meetups? I don't think it's likely. Echo Fall says, thanks for ruining my sleep. Well, we need to wrap things up anyway. Then I'll let you go. And M. Kundera is telling Hannah that her channel is enjoyable. It is enjoyable. The Victorian hat for the Victober video was in the thumbnail is especially pleasing. But anyway, we're going to wrap things up now. This was wonderful. I do not know the numbers. Maybe one of you can tell me. I think we had as many as 25 people here. Certainly from the chat, it looked like that, and that's wonderful. I don't know. We don't need to talk about the long-term future. I will try to do a Stevestream tomorrow. Okay? I'll try to do a Stevestream tomorrow and maybe Saturday. And then we'll play it by ear and see. There should be a couple of Stevestreams left that we can chat. So I'll wrap this one up for now, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you, too.